Internal genital organs. The internal genital organs in female include vagina, uterus, fallopian tubes and the ovaries. Vagina. The vagina is a fibromusculomembranous sheath communicating the uterine cavity with the exterior at the vulva. It constitutes the excretory channel for the uterine secretion and menstrual blood. It is the organ of copulation and forms the birth canal of parturition. The canal is directed upwards and backwards, forming an angle of 45 degrees. With the horizontal in erect posture. The long axis of the vagina almost lies parallel to the plane of the pelvic inlet and at right angles to that of the uterus. The diameter of the canal is about 2.5 centimeters, being widest in the upper part and narrowest at its introitus. It has got enough power of disensibility as evident during childbirth. Walls. Vagina has got an anterior, a posterior and two lateral walls. The anterior and posterior walls are opposed together, but the lateral walls are comparatively stiffer, especially at its middle. As such, it looks H-shaped. On transverse section, the length of the anterior wall is about 7 centimeters and that of the posterior wall is about 9 centimeters. Fornices. The fornices are the clefts formed at the top of vagina vault due to the projection of the uterine cervix through the anterior vaginal wall, where it is blended inseparably with its wall. There are 4 fornices, 1 anterior, 1 posterior and 2 lateral, the posterior one being deeper and the anterior, most shallow one. Relations. Anterior, the upper 1/3 is related with base of the bladder and the lower 2/3 are with the urethra, the lower half of which is firmly embedded with its wall. Posterior, the upper 1/3 is related with the pouch of Douglas, the middle third with the anterior rectal wall separated by rectovaginal septum, and the lower third is separated from the anal canal by the perineal body. Lateral walls. The upper 1/3 is related with the pelvic cellular tissue at the base of broad ligament, in which the ureter and the uterine artery lie approximately 2 centimeters from the lateral fornices. The middle third is blended with the levator ani, and the lower third is related with the bulbocavernosus muscles, vestibular bulbs and Bartholin's glands. Structures. Layers from within outwards are 1. Mucus coat, which is lined by stratified squamous epithelium without any secreting glands. 2. Submucous layer of loose areolar vascular tissues. 3. Muscular layer consisting of indistinct inner circular and outer longitudinal muscles, and 4. Fibrous coat derived from the endopelvic fossa and is highly vascular. Vaginal secretion. The vaginal pH, from puberty to menopause, is acidic because of the presence of Dodderlane's bacilli, which produce lactic acid from the glycogen present in the exfoliated cells. The pH varies with the estrogenic activity and ranges between 4 to 5. Blood supply. The arteries involved are 1. Cervicovaginal branch of the uterine artery. 2. Vaginal artery, a branch of anterior division of internal iliac or in common origin with the uterine. 3. Middle rectal N. 4. Internal pudendal. These anastomose with one another and form 2 azygous arteries. Anterior and posterior. Veins drain into internal iliac veins and internal pudendal veins. Lymphatics. On each side, the lymphatics drain into 1. Upper 1/3, internal iliac group, 2. Middle 1/3 up to hymen, internal iliac group, 3. Below the hymen, superficial inguinal group. Nerve supply. The vagina is supplied by sympathetic and parasympathetic from the pelvic plexus. The lower part is supplied by the pudendal nerve. Development. The vagina is developed from the following sources: upper 4/5 above the hymen. The mucous membrane is derived from endoderm of the canalized sino-vaginal bulbs. The musculature is developed from the mesoderm of 2 fused Mullerian ducts. B. Lower 1/5 below the hymen is developed from the endoderm of the urogenital sinus. C. External vaginal orifice is formed from the genital fold ectoderm after rupture of the urogenital membrane. The uterus. The uterus is a hollow piriform muscular organ situated in the pelvis between the bladder in front and the rectum behind. Position. Its normal position is one of the anteversion and antflexion. The uterus usually inclines to the right dextrorotation so that the cervix is directed to the left levorotation and comes in close relation with the left ureter. Measurements and parts. The uterus measures about 8 centimeters long, 5 centimeters wide at the fundus, and its walls are about 1.25 centimeters thick. Its weight varies from 50 to 80 gm. It has got the following parts: body or corpus, isthmus, cervix. 1. Body or corpus. The body is further divided into fundus, the part which lies above the openings of the uterine tubes. The body proper is triangular and lies between the openings of the tubes and the isthmus. The Superolateral angles of the body of the uterus project outwards from the junction of the fundus and body and is called the cornua of the uterus. The uterine tube, round, ligament and ligament of the ovary are attached to it. 2. Isthmus is a constricted part measuring about 0.5 centimeters, situated between the body and the cervix. It is limited above by the anatomical internal os and below by the histological internal os. Ashoff. Some consider isthmus as a part of the lower portion of the body of the uterus. 3. Cervix is cylindrical in shape and measures about 2.5 centimeters. It extends from the isthmus and ends at the external os, which opens into the vagina after perforating its anterior wall. The part lying above the vagina is called supravaginal, and that which lies within the vagina is called the vaginal part. Cavity. The cavity of the uterine body is triangular on coronal section with the base above and the apex below. It measures about 3.5 centimeters. There is no cavity in the fundus. The cervical canal is fusiform and measures about 2.5 centimeters. Thus, the normal length of the uterine cavity is usually 6.5-7 cm. Fallopian tube. Synonyms: uterine tube, oviduct. The uterine tubes are paired structures, measuring about 10 centimeters and are situated in the medial 3/4 of the upper free margin of the broad ligament. Each tube has got 2 openings, one communicating with the lateral angle of the uterine cavity called uterine opening and measures 1 mm in diameter, the other is on the lateral end of the tube, called pelvic opening or abdominal ostium, and measures about 2 mm in diameter. Parts. There are 4 parts. From medial to lateral are 1. Intramural or interstitial, lying in the uterine wall and measures 1.25 centimeters in length and 1 mm in diameter. 2. Isthmus, almost straight and measures about 3 to 4 cm in length and 2 mm in diameter. 3. Ampulla, tortuous part and measures about 5 centimeters in length, which ends in 4. Wide infundibulum, measuring about 1.25 centimeters long with a maximum diameter of 6 mm. The ovary. The ovaries are paired sex glands or gonads in female which are concerned for I. Germ cell maturation, storage and its release, and E. Steroidogenesis. Each gland is oval in shape and pinkish-gray in color, and the surface is scarred during reproductive period. It measures about 3 centimeters in length, 2 centimeters in breadth and 1 centimeter in thickness. Each ovary presents 2 ends, tubal and uterine, 2 borders, mesovarium and free posterior, and 2 surfaces, medial and lateral. The ovaries are intraperitoneal structures. In nullipara, the ovary lies in the ovarian fossa on the lateral pelvic wall. The ovary is attached to the posterior layer of the broad ligament by the mesovarium, to the lateral pelvic wall by the infundibulopelvic ligament, and to the uterus by the ovarian ligament.